1111 True Crime. My name is Danny, but you can call me Mama D like everybody else. Welcome in. All right, you guys. So I started watching the trial of Lindsay Clancy. If you're not familiar with the case, I'm going to try. Now, I don't know the whole case. I just started. But this is a case that I'm already being pulled into. Here's what I have found out so far. So it's just going to trial now, but it happened a few years ago. With the case. Sorry, didn't mean to blast that out on you. I'm gonna, I'm new to it, so there's a lot I don't know. But Lindsay was a nurse, a pediatrician nurse, is from what I understand, or even with babies. And it looked like they had the perfect life. All the photos are of the children well dressed, very well taken care of, and lots of pictures of smiles and happy, and it looked wonderful. However, Lindsay was having problems and mentally, and so she began to express it and tell people and was trying to get help. They were switching up her meds, and it just was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And she was keeping a journal where she's writing in the journal saying she's got dark thoughts, and things are just getting worse by the day. So the husband, Patrick, he decides, that he'll come home. He'll work from home. Now, he's not just a tech guy. Allegedly, from my understanding at this point, is that he is an executive, a sales executive for Microsoft, and they make like $400,000 a year. So not just a tech guy. But so he's going to work from home. Now, leading up to this, it appeared that Lindsay was getting a little better, like she was having the best day ever. And the baby was sick, and the baby had a double ear infection. So she asked her husband to go out and get the medication for the baby. And so he went and ran a few trips very close and to pick up some takeout food. While he's gone, it's been alleged, she took exercise bands, the stretchy kind, and strangled all 3 of the children in the basement. Meanwhile, she's calling in, talking to him allegedly too. This gets all weird because was she really calling him? Was her watch being used to call his phone? It gets really weird, so you got to pay attention, but I'm giving you what the courts are saying. So then she does that. She goes upstairs. She cuts her arms. You know what I'm saying? The wrist. And also, I believe the neck, I'm not 100% on that. And then allegedly, she just, according to the courts that they've alleged, she threw herself out the window of the 2nd-story home, and she lands in the snow down below. And from everything that I'm understanding as well, she's paralyzed from the waist down from that. Now, you think, well, it's pretty cut and dry. And I think the investigators thought that too. I think that being that the husband had told the paramedics that she had been conscious for a little bit and told him that the children were in the basement, when he asked her what she had done, see, that's where I also have a question. What happened would be what I would ask, but what did you do? Okay. He alleges that she told him that she tried to take her own life and it didn't work, somewhere along that lines. So now the paramedics arrive and they're tending to her when he announces He needs to go find his kids. So he comes into the house and he says that he took his boots off. The problem is that when he's on these errands, he's in tennis shoes. So it gets weird because there's the picture of the boots. So when did he have all this time to change his shoes? I don't know. But he goes down and he finds the children while he's still connected to 911. This horrific scene, it's all played out on 911. You can hear him, and his wails keep getting louder with each child found. She has to go through surgery, which when she is brought out of the coma, because she's paralyzed from the waist down, and she said she heard voices. She believes she did this from everything we know. But others are suggesting that it's possible that he was drugging her. That's what others are saying, that he was drugging her and pushing her mental buttons, and that he actually was having an affair in New York with the woman that 4 months after the children pass, he marries and has a child with. So people are looking at it going, is he a Chris Watts? And he framed the wife who's mentally ill and maybe convinced her that she did it. He's standing by her in trial. He's actually more of a defense witness. The trial is not suggesting that she didn't do it, because she's already said she did it. So now the question that the courts are trying to find out is if she planned this, if she premeditated this, she's just a selfish person that just wanted done with all of the responsibility of having a family. Or did she have a psychosis? Was there something in her meds that was so messed up? Because when you listen to the trial and you find out all the meds she was on and how fast they were changing up, and there were some that were counteractive and productive with others, it gets really crazy. So I've gone through, I watched Christina Randall's channel. I grabbed a few little TikToks and stuff of that nature, and I wanted to share all that with you because a lot of people are saying, if you do the math on the timing, because they know what time he was here and here and here and so forth. They know what time this happened and that happened. They're suggesting that there is no scientific way that Lindsay could have harmed the children and done that where she reaches 82 degrees core body temperature laying outside that window. There's something wrong there. So I'm curious. Right, this happened in 2023, right, Jenny Bill? Yeah, meds are trial and error. Man with a plan one, you're right there. So, yes, Carla's right. 4 months after this happened with the children and Lindsay, he left, moved to New York, divorced Lindsay, and married a doctor from New York. And that doctor has ties to some very famous people, as well as he has Patrick. It's been said, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's been alleged that he's got connections to the police force. You've been on psych meds for 30 plus years. Med changes are awful. Ruffin Ruffer says it is possible that he can be implicated after all this time. I don't know. I mean, at this point, even her defense attorney isn't even suggesting that she didn't do it. In fact, they're more or less saying she fell through the cracks and that the medicine being changed up all the time and the amount that she was being given and so forth caused adverse reaction, and she had a true manic psychosis. Okay, so that's what the courts are alleging. However, would she have not? I mean, they revived the baby in the hospital. So when you start looking at that, it would almost suggest that the husband would have had to have been back in the home before the baby was taken out, not while the husband was away, because there's a time cutoff that a person can be brought back from the dead. There's like, a time limit, and that's 30 minutes, and that's if everything is perfect. So if you're only looking at that 30 minutes, then either Lindsay did it when he was in the house or he was in the house. You feel me? I mean, that's what it's being suggested. Riffin Ruffer says, is it possible that he can be implicated after all this time? That's such a good question. Angie4, hello, lovely. Welcome back. The only information the police were ever given was from Patrick only. There was no investigation because it appeared cut and dry. So there's, Patrick didn't have his phone gone through. You feel me? Jennyville says, I personally feel the defense, have something, I hope, up their sleeves. She also says, I know she confessed, but did they investigate other possibilities? Not that I'm aware of. They just went with her theory that she did it. I mean, why are they going to keep looking if somebody says, hey, I did it? But did she really? Let's look into some of this together. Let me see what window we need. Yeah, let's go up to this window. All right, so I called it a reality check because when I was first understanding this, it looked pretty much cut and dry. Like I was like, oh my God, she did it. But then I'm like listening to other people talk and I'm like, wait a minute. Why did the father get $1.7 million in a GoFundMe? How much does a funeral cost for 3 children? $1.7 million? Could he have paid off her defense so that he is never implicated? I don't know. That's what people are asking. So let's get over here. I wanted to give a shout out to Christina Randall. She has 1.82 million subscribers, my lovelies. And she's the, show kindness to everybody everywhere. She's just a sweetheart. So I wanted to say thank you because she did a good job of pulling in some content that I thought we should look at together. Jennyville said she was so paranoid of becoming addicted to the meds from court. Right. Angel Force says Patrick was also carrying around a bag of her meds in his truck. And even her blood testing after this event was staggering how much she had in her. It really does make you look at things. Cowboy says, you're really here. I looked for you yesterday. Well, I'm glad that you're able to join us. Thank you for tuning in. All right, you guys. So new case, which means we won't have a ton of viewers right away. Have a lot more replay crew. So thank you to the replay crew as well. Okay, you guys, let's get into this.
I think happened.
Listen to this.
Started to grow the second he had kids and realized he had to father them. I think the second he realized it was going to take some of his energy, he purchased a nanny. So when he realized that his wife was now having extreme mental health issues, that to keep the status up, he would have to be going to all of her doctor's appointments and being very involved in it. People keep saying he's a tech bro, but he's not a tech bro. He just works at a tech company, that company being Microsoft. He's an executive sales manager at Microsoft. He makes about $400,000 a year. I think family to him is more of a status symbol and less something that he strives for. This is the kind of guy that hangs around people that say, to our wives and our children, may they never meet our girlfriends. Ha ha. I think he saw that there was bad fruit on the tree that he needed to cut off, and that was his wife. Maybe he had thought it through a bunch of times of how he would do it. He would fantasize about it, but it wasn't until that day that it just kind of snapped into place and it happened.
Then, y'all, and I have seen so many people talking about this, you guys. It came out during the trial that Patrick actually may have changed his shoes while he was out at CVS picking up food. Check this
Okay,
out.
hold on a
Lindsay
minute.
yet again brings up something very.
Hold on a minute. Why would you change your shoes? The only time, well, I won't even mention it, but in a different case, very similar to this, where 3 very young boys passed away. The mother's on death row now. I did some research and the shoe came into play because the victim, the mother that was then accused later in court of doing this to her children, she suffered severe damage and sliced her throat within a hair of her aorta, which would have killed her, and her wrists. And then she had extreme black bruising. And in her bruising, she had mottled colors and it looked like a pattern. And she didn't remember anything. So she went to prison for it because her husband stood by her and was like, oh, I feel so bad. I wasn't more involved and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, a lot happened in that case. And it come to find out that the father was also working for the government, and all kinds of crazy stuff went on in her trial, like testimony got lost and evidence got lost, all kinds of stuff. And she ended up going up the river for the rest of her life. So I was looking at that case a long time ago, and I was looking at it, I'm like, wait a minute. The markings on her arms are weird. So I started looking at them like those are actual patterns. That looks like the sole of shoes. So I made it dark, so I contrasted it out. So I got the exact pattern of the shoe. I then went on eBay, and for a week, I looked at different shoes and they had the sole, picture of the sole, till I was able to match the exact print. And it was so weird. Come to find out, dear old daddy had an very expensive, vintage, rare shoe collection of tennis shoes, from Nike to all kinds of. And the one pair that matched the bruising on the woman, the mother that's on death row, matched the same shoes the dad had sitting by the front door in the crime scene photo. And I have yet to have anybody ever respond to all the evidence I sent in to the Innocence Foundation. Nobody cared. And I'm like, oh my God. So even though millions of people will come after you if you dare say the woman didn't do it, I still know in my heart of hearts she didn't do that. So I've learned to approach cases to see if what they're pushing as a narrative is true or not. Does it hold water? Why would the father change his shoes in the middle of an errand? Could he have changed his shoes when he got back home? And would it be to get rid of a pair of shoes that may have evidence on them? I don't know. It's just weird. Changed his shoes and his shirt, said Angie Forge. Rip and Ripper says, why was the bedroom window open at 5:08 p.m. when she didn't go out the window till 5:28 p.m.? It was 35 degrees outside. It looks like two different men, in my opinion, if you watch the footage captured at the restaurant and the CTV. I'll have to look better. Yeah, the new wife looks a lot like Lindsay. He seemed apathetic and put out, almost stand to you. Nikki is asking, did that ask her how she unalived the kids? I don't know yet. let's get into this thing about the shoe. Jennyville says allegedly there was blood on the outside of the house as she slid down after hanging out the window. You know, is it possible that she wasn't hanging outside the window? Is it possible that someone had her hanging outside the window? Because this gets really weird. Let's continue with this.
Very, very interesting in his statements and his testimony, saying that when he gets home and he physically enters the kitchen, he says he takes his boots off. And then obviously he sets down the takeout order and the CVS items. But he mentions very clearly, I took my boots off. I'm confused about the boots. Just for reference.
And what did you do once you got inside the home?
I started taking my boots off.
Now, the issue I have with that is if you look right here, those don't look like boots. Let me get out of the way. Those look like tennis sneakers. In case you need a close-up, those still look like tennis sneakers from the 3V restaurant. Those don't look like boots. However, about
How do we
20
know
minutes
that's
prior,
him, though?
Those do look like boots. And if you look at the soles of the boots, they're black. See the black? See the black? And let's go to the soles of these shoes. Clearly white. Whether you want to say it's semantics or not,
Yeah, but
these
how do
don't
we
look
know
like
it's
the same
him
shoes.
in the second
I'm not one for
footage?
conspiracies, but those are legitimately two different shoes. Maybe it's a camera angle. I couldn't tell you, but there's a very clear white sole on one shoe, which looks more like a tennis sneaker. And then there's a dark sole on the other shoe that looks more like a boot when he was at CVS.
I've seen the professionals saying that different lighting, different angles, and that it did not change his shoes, but nevertheless, it's what people are talking about. So y'all let me know what y'all think down below, because to me, it actually does look like two different pairs of shoes, but what do I know? It also came out during the trial when Lindsay was found that her body temperature was only 82 degrees by the time she got to the...
Okay. So Lindsay's body was 82.7 degrees Fahrenheit when her body was found. There's snow on the ground. Even with injuries, it will require time for the core body temperature to get that low. So what this man that's going to be talking to us with 1,000 things he's saying, what he's saying is she would have had to be laying out in that yard a lot longer to reach that low of a body temperature than is being set. In other words, she would have been out the window with everything cut before the children were harmed. How is that possible? She's the only adult in the house. Not necessarily. He brings up the fact that the little 8-month-old baby was able to be revived and died a few days later in the hospital, but nonetheless was able to be revived. And he has the timestamp of that event occurring. If you go back 30 minutes before that, it puts him on the father allegedly in the home. So if you add all of that together, it would suggest through her body temperature that she would have been the first victim. If she's the first victim, then how did she just do this to the kids? And is it possible, because of all the... She had so much medication in her system at that time that it was a level of sedation. Did she go lay down on the bed, heavily sedated, and he'd do this, plop her out, then go do the kids? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. But how is Lindsay's body 82.7 degrees Fahrenheit when it would require, and we learned that in the Karen Reed case, how long it takes the body, blah, blah, blah. It would take X amount of time for her to get that low in body temperature, even with the wounds that she had, allegedly. The judge stopped court. Ooh. From River says John O'Keefe was 87 degrees and had laid in the snow and covered in the snow for several hours. Exactly. We don't have that kind of time. Remember, she and him were texting each other back and forth just a few minutes before this. Yes, she said, I can't do this, while sobbing, and just stopped court. Oh my God. Rough and Rougher Lindsay's was wailing today in court when her children's injuries were mentioned in court today. I don't think Lindsay killed her kids, just my opinion. Angie Force says in the master bedroom there's a cup that had orange juice and crushed up pills. You feel me? That's crazy. Okay, let's get back over to this and think about that as he explains it. So he's going to go through a lot of information super fast. The point that he's making is he's worked out the timeline, and if everything that we're being shown about Lindsay's body temperature at that time, it would suggest that Lindsay had to have been first and almost before in first. But let me know what you think. I think he drugged her, Angie Force says. Her DNA was not on the cords, only Patrick's. That is true. So the cords that were used to strangle the children didn't have her DNA. So they did have Patrick's DNA. And you might be like, well, there it is. Excuse me, I kind of hiccuped, and his DNA is on him, and therefore he did it. However, he's the one that finds the children and admittedly removes the bungee type cords from the children. So his DNA, it would be on them. However, would it be in equal parts? You know, they need to investigate those cords, because if you're just removing it, it suggests, like, you know, maybe a few fingers to do it in the weird place wherever here, and then it comes off and then you throw it. But if you were using it for something like that, wouldn't you have this equal amount of, you know what I'm saying? So where is the DNA on these cords? If it's exactly like this, well, then that to me would be a big, oh my God. Nikki says, I know I don't know much about this case, but I feel something's very off. Me too. And that's why I was like, we're going to cover this. Even though I feel like we're very late into it because we're already on the 11th day of trial, I'm just picking up. There's, like I told you guys earlier in the other video, there's something not right here. Nikki says, well, someone could have pushed her and do that to the kids, then well. And I don't think she was pushed. I almost feel like she was, because there was blood going down the side of the house, as if she slid. Okay? So maybe he just, you know, cut while she was sleeping, so she doesn't even know she's bleeding. She's completely out. He grabs her, lowers her down, and then and she's going to, I'm just asking. I don't know, y'all. Let's look at this a little bit more.
The hospital. Now, some people believe that this shifts the timeline quite a bit, and it makes Patrick look like he was more involved.
It is not scientifically possible for Lindsay to both have strangled Callan and for her body to have been at 82 degrees. Let me tell you guys how I got here. Patrick claims to have left the house.
So Callan is the baby. Callan is the 8-month-old baby. He gets revived. He lived for a few days in the hospital before passing. He's saying it is impossible for Lindsay's body to get down to a core temperature of 82.7 degrees in 30 minutes. Why is that important? Because they revived the baby, which means if you go backwards 30 minutes, that's the longest that they could that Callan could have been strangled, because otherwise they couldn't have got him back. They wouldn't have been able to bring him back. Time would have gone, you know? I don't know. That's what this guy's saying, so I'm just explaining it. So that's why he's saying it's impossible for Lindsay to be at 82.7 degrees outside already after Callan, because it would take hours.
At 5:15 p.m., but he sent an email from Surface Pro at 5:24 p.m. Very early in the trial, Patrick said Surface Pro was from his laptop. When Reddington mentioned it later, you sent an email from, what was it called? Surface Pro? At that point, Patrick responded, from my laptop. So this is the second time he said Surface Pro was from his laptop. Once Patrick sees the email and the timestamp, that is when he backtracks and says, well, it could have been from my phone. But Reddington already knows that it was sent from his laptop and not his phone because he has the forensics, and that's why it was submitted to evidence. So that puts Patrick at the home at 5:24 p.m.
So Patrick is at the home at 5:24 p.m. because he used his laptop. And that's the data that's suggesting he's home. All right.
That means the soonest he could have left would have been 5:25 p.m., which means the latest he could have left would have been 5:29 p.m. because he walked through the doors of CVS at 5:32. From 5:25 to 5:29 is when Patrick actually left the house. Now, there's been no CVS footage from outside when he pulled in and at what time. And there are cameras outside, so we need to see when he pulled in to give us a more accurate time of when he left the home. That means at maximum he'd been gone for 9 minutes, at minimum he'd been gone for 5. At 5:32 p.m. he walks into CVS. At 5:33 p.m. he calls Lindsay to say they don't have Pedialyte, but they have generic. We now know this is a lie because on the crime scene you see the name brand Pedialyte through the bag. 1 minute later, 5:34 is when Lindsay calls him back. So the moment that Lindsay calls Patrick back, this is when her movement in the house stops being tracked and it leaves her at the top floor of the house. We do not know that she left upstairs after that. That gives her a maximum of 9 minutes from the time he left until that phone call. Her toxicology reports say that the Seroquel levels in her system were double that of a therapeutic dose, which is sedating. So is that why she stopped moving upstairs? All of that brings us to 5:35 p.m., which is the soonest time it would have been possible for Lindsay to jump. 5:55 p.m. is when Patrick leaves the restaurant. The drive time is between 10 and 12 minutes. This places him at the home somewhere between 6:05 and 6:07. At 6:11 is when 911 is called. Patrick claims he was having trouble calling 911, but we all obviously know now that this is a lie because 911 calls bypass any sort of service errors you may have. Okay, so this is really where it shifts. At 6:15 is when the first responders arrive. Callan arrived to the ER somewhere between 6:30 and 6:40, but because I'm trying to give everything the benefit of the doubt, I'm using the earliest times possible, so let's say 6:30. It is on record that 10 minutes after the ambulance arrived to the emergency room, 10 minutes after, they were able to start Callan's heartbeat back up. In order for them to get the heartbeat back with an infant in those circumstances, the longest his heartbeat could not have been going was 30 minutes, right? And that's already rare. The most rare, 1 in a million chance would be 45 minutes. So if Callan's heartbeat restarted at 6:40, 30 minutes, which is extreme, would have been 6:10. Patrick was home at 6:07. There is a psychotic, like I said, once in a million shot that they're able to get the heartbeat back after 45 minutes max, but even that puts his situation at 5:55. If he was at 5:55, that never would have given Lindsay time for her to jump from the window and for her body to drop to 82 degrees. Even with all of her injuries, it is scientifically impossible for him to be at 5:55 p.m. for her to jump and her body to be at 82 degrees, even with all the injuries she had. One of the claims that they're making is that she got off the phone with him and that's when she jumped. But if that were the case, if Callan had been out since 5:35 p.m., they
would have never got that baby back.
Bring back a heartbeat.
Did you follow all that? So it would almost have to have happened. I'm trying to understand this. This would almost have to have been more time that Lindsay was laying out in that snow than is allowed in the timeline where it happened in his absence. She would have had to been laying out there before he even left to the store, is what I think I'm understanding. And if that's true, then did he come back and then take out the kids? See, I don't get that part. Not offenders, officers. No way this time frame. Nope, not in your opinion. This seems like Chris Watts. If Patrick did have a mistress allegedly and a kid unalive, and by the looks of it, Lindsay should have been to heartbreak, just my opinion. There are those that are wondering if right now during this trial, if Lindsay is starting to realize that she may have been set up. This is so sad. Okay, let's get over here and talk about this.
It has also been said that Lindsay's DNA was not found on the devices that she used. You know, those exercise bands? They did not find her DNA on it at all.
More likely if it originated from Dawson Clancy and an unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support that Dawson Clancy is included as a contributor to this DNA profile. The DNA profile from this item is at least 3.6 million times more likely if it originated from Callan Clancy and an unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support that Callan Clancy is included as a contributor to this profile. The DNA profile from this item is at least 1.4 billion times more likely if it originated from Patrick Clancy and an unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support that Patrick Clancy is included as a contributor to this DNA profile. Cora Clancy and Lindsay Clancy are excluded from this DNA profile.
Which we know his DNA is going to be on the stretcher bands because he's pulling them off the kids. But there's no investigation that says where's the DNA on the cords. Like I said, is it perfectly even? Where? You know what I'm feeling? I choked to death on my tea. Okay. And then let's go up here. Okay, that's all of that one. Listen to this. This is weird about the cameras. This gets me. When the cameras always work and Wi-Fi always works all the time at a location until a crime happens, I'm all like, throw my red hat in. I'm done. Okay, listen to this one.
Okay, here's something I find weird with the Lindsay Clancy Patrick situation. So the Wi-Fi, okay, it's claimed he was working from home that day, so surely he needed the Wi-Fi to work from home. He got home, he called Lindsay, no issues whatsoever. But there was issues when he tried to call 911 because his phone kept going in and out trying to connect to the Wi-Fi. But it's claimed that there was cameras in the house and that day they weren't working because there was issues with the Wi-Fi. So he can call her earlier, no issues. But then he tries to call 911, issues. Cameras aren't working because no Wi-Fi that day, but you worked from home all day. Surely you used Wi-Fi.
I called Lindsay to see if she was home because I looked.
Point did you call 911?
I don't know the exact time, but it took a few minutes because my phone was switching between Wi-Fi and 911. So I almost just started calling out for the neighbors, but eventually it went through.
Okay. So you had some difficulty connecting, but eventually you connected to the 911 operator?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, at this point, some people believe that literally while this trial is going on, Lindsay is realizing that she may have been set up by Patrick.
I think that we are all watching Lindsay Clancy realize she actually didn't kill those kids. Why did he need a GoFundMe? Is he paying for her lawyer? $1.7 million for what? How much does a funeral cost? He is panicking right now. He's got a family member in law enforcement. The new wife's husband is connected to Hollywood. He's living in a high-rise in Manhattan with a new doctor wife and a new baby. This man has not shed one tear.
Not one.
And Kevin Reddington is also figuring this out as it goes. It's all becoming so clear.
Then some of Lindsay's journal entries and social media posts were presented during the trial.
Further on into her travels, I am completely overwhelmed trying to take care of the kids I'm doing every day.
Okay. So her journal goes in depth, and that'll be for another day. However, if there was a husband that had a wife and she wasn't mentally feeling good, he may have started wanting a different wife, right? And so in that, working from home could give him the opportunity and access that he wouldn't have. You have to ask some questions here as to who put the ground up meds in the cup by her bed. Did she take all that and lay down when the kids were in the basement? I don't know. The whole thing, if he orchestrated this, that would be so psychotic. That would be horrific. Right, Angie? You can still call 911 without Wi-Fi. That's right. That's very right. What'd Lizard say? How come I don't see nobody? Oh, I'm on top chat. Dang it. Let me go to live. Sorry. Lizard says, if I saw my wife with her throat slit, not regular, lying in the snow bleeding, I'd have immediately thought intruder and OF, where are the kids? That's what I would have thought too. Yeah, a lot of people are agreeing with you. Ruffer says, I hope the truth comes out. So sad. And if Patrick did do this, he put her in a wheelchair for life. Yeah. So that's all I have for you now. I'm just studying the case, trying to understand more. It's frustrating to have suspicions, and the courts are not even looking at that angle at all. Their only focus is on Lindsay. Now, there's more jury members in this jury. I believe it's 18 than usual. And so there's backup upon backup upon backup. This should be interesting to see how this trial goes and what more will we learn. I don't know. All right, my lovelies, that is what I have for you today. Now, remember, Friday, we are going to be doing our fundraiser for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children so that we can give back and help. And I'll be sharing my painting. Now, I do it Never Forgotten, and that is about Kylie Rodney, as well as Nolan Wells and Jay Slater. All three cases that I've covered very heavily, and all of them were surrounded by acquaintances that were supposed to be best friends. But yet, these children passed away, and the friends are just fine. And I can't come to terms with any of those being an accident. So I took my tension out on the canvas, and I'm looking forward to showing my wave that's crashing. I'll show it to you one more time, and then you can watch it painted. And maybe we can raise some money for the National Center for Missing Exploited Children. So with that being said, I see some information has come out on the Nolan Wells case. I was gonna be like, okay, Officer Tatum's getting some interviews with the boys and let's talk about it. But all it is the lawyer doing all the talking and basically just establishing a threat that if you even, he does make it very clear that if you lie about the boys, if you lie about them, you're going to court. Well, then we don't have to worry because we ain't never lied. But at the same time, there's no substance to it to look at the case of Nolan Wells. Other than, I guess you could say that there wasn't, even in this I think it was part 1, where Warren and the other 2 boys each told their version of the very same story. And Warren's was completely blown out of proportion by the time you get down to, and the one kid was like, I don't even know what he's talking about. I wasn't there for that. I never heard that kind of energy. And then told his own version, which is much more mild. And then by the time you get to the 3rd boy that was there and literally in the inside building, he plays it even further down. And so not one of them told the same story on the same event. And so it kind of shows you that everything seems disproportionate and twisted. I don't know. But at this point, there's nothing new that I can go over on the case for Nolan unless I want to be talking about defamation courts and stuff like that matter of who's suing who and for what reason. And it's gotten too much for me to even keep up. I mean, some of these players are just playing each other's name out there to hear their name being said. It's bad. I did think to myself, who is this guy that's sitting with the kids that Tatum's going to interview? And then I was like, man, that dad, if that's a dad to one of these boys, you'd think he could have like sit up in his chair instead of slouched down like he's some hoodlum. And then I was thinking, if that's a dad of one of these kids on national TV, he could have sat up straight and actually not made himself look like a thug. I find out it's not a dad of the kids. It's the lawyer. Yeah. All right, my loves. I will see you again very, very soon. I'm going to keep researching the Lindsay Clancy case. And yeah, there's a lot of, did she really do it? Now I'm starting to wonder. Because of the timeline thing. How did her body get to 82.7 degrees in minutes? I don't think so. Love you guys. Thank you for everything. See you again soon.
I shall return when my eyes are closed in the shadows. My enemies will think they won, but I am here to stay. Destiny will overcome. No, I am not afraid. Like a thief.